Thanks for being here this evening. This is the convening of the Cottonwood Mayor and City Council of the City of Cottonwood for presentation of proclamations, awards, and introduction of new city employees, to be held on April 18th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. So first up this afternoon, we have a proclamation declaring the month of April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And we have Ms. McDonald here this evening to receive the proclamation. So I'll go ahead and read it, and then we'll get you to come up and receive the proclamation and say a few words if you'd like. Okay? Whereas Sexual Assault Awareness Month is intended to draw attention to the fact that sexual violence is widespread and has public health implications for every community member of the City of Cottonwood. And whereas the City of Cottonwood shares a critical concern for the victims of sexual violence and a desire to support the needs for justice and healing, and whereas rape, sexual assault, and sexual harassment impact our community, as seen by statistics indicating that 1 in 2 women, 1 in 4 men, and 1 in 2 transgender individuals have experienced contact sexual violence in their lifetime. And whereas we must work together to educate our community about what can be done to prevent sexual assault and how to support survivors. And whereas staff and volunteers of anti-violence programs at Verde Valley Sanctuary encourage every person to speak out when witnessing acts of violence, however small, and support victims of sexual violence. And whereas, with leadership, dedication, and encouragement, there is compelling evidence that we can be successful in reducing sexual violence in the City of Cottonwood through prevention education, increased awareness, and holding perpetrators who commit acts of violence responsible for their actions. And whereas the City of Cottonwood strongly supports the efforts of national, state, and local partners and of every citizen to actively engage in public and private efforts, including conversations about what sexual violence is, how to prevent it, how to help survivors connect with services, and how every segment of our society can work together to better address sexual violence. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Tim Alinsky, Mayor of the City of Cottonwood, Arizona, on behalf of the City Council, join anti-sexual violence advocates and support service programs in the belief that all community members must be part of the solution to end sexual violence, along with the United States government and state of Arizona. I do hereby proclaim April 2023 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month in the City of Cottonwood. Good evening.
Greetings, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members and fellow citizens. This is a clear declaration to join hands, and I will do that across the Cottonwood area to prevent sexual violence and support survivors. Sexual assault at its core is a devastating abuse of power, one that affects people of every age, race, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, national origin, socioeconomic background, and religion. It is critical for each of us to stand up and acknowledge this issue, improve the laws and services available to survivors, and to change the culture and attitudes that allow this violence to proliferate. The sanctuary will be offering meet and greet workshops at 3 local libraries called Heightening Sexual Assault Awareness Month, where sanctuary staff will facilitate a learning opportunity to better understand sexual violence and how to support yourself and others. We have them on April 13th, we held it at Cottonwood Public Library, April 19th, Camp Verde Community Library, April 27th at Sedona Public Library. If you have experienced sexual violence at any point in your life or know someone who has, you are not alone. There is support and safety waiting for you, and you can reach Verde Valley Sanctuary's crisis helpline at 928-634-2511. You can remain anonymous when you call. For more information about the workshops, there are flyers at each of your seatings as well as in the lobby. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks for all that you do in our community, too. We're very fortunate to have you in Sanctuary, so thanks to you and your team. Thank you.
Yes, good work. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have a presentation from APS on fire mitigation and summer readiness. And I believe we have Darla DeVille here this evening. No, excuse me.
She's my other half.
Okay, great.
I'm so sorry.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. I am not Darla DeVille. I'm Robbie Hull. I'm a Northwest supervisor for APS Division. And the one that actually represents you is Jonathan Meyer, who was unable to attend, so I'm going to stand in for his place. But we do want to go over a little bit of information as fire season affects not only our customers, it affects our system. The first item, I'll go over some numbers. 2022, Arizona experienced over 1,200 fires, which burned 145,000 acres. Acreage is less than what's previous, but fire count is quite a bit higher. So far, year to date in Arizona, we've had 13 fires. With these fires, 1 in 3 come close or impact our system, and that's kind of what we're here to talk about this evening. There's 3 measures that we look at, and we look at these all year long. We have a team designated just for fire mitigation. We look at prevention, mitigation, and response. So prevention, since mid part of last year in not only the Cottonwood area, the Verde area, Clarkdale, and Sedona, we've had 4 crews working literally non-stop in this area, clearing vegetation that has impact to the system, has impact to the community, as well as environmental impact. So they have been non-stop. They actually just pulled out of this area last week. So that crew did an amazing job. In the Northwest, there's over 1,900 miles of overhead feeder line, so that's kind of why the importance of the conversation comes in when we look at mitigation. I heard it mentioned when we were in here, you know, PG&E. I had the opportunity to lead the team into Paradise while the fire just finished up, and it's very devastating when you look at a community that has a tremendous amount of residents, and you may have 1 to 2 homes out of 100 still standing. And a lot of challenges when I was there was a lot of the areas we are in here remind me a lot of that area. One of the biggest challenges was vegetation and the lack of management. The other is, unlike Arizona or APS, they actually shut power down. And they call those public safety power shutdowns. That particular day that took place, heavy winds, and they decided not to shut the power down roughly an hour before this event took place, and it was a catastrophic failure of a piece of equipment, which we know the rest of the story, right? During fire season, and when we get into the big aspect of fire season with impact to system, there's 2 things we won't really let up on, and that's the reliability side, but the safety side. We have first responders, law enforcement, firefighters, as well as the crews that we have within APS engaged in these fires. Our role for the initial impact is making that area safe for power going through that may be down, as well as the law enforcement side. In this particular area, we call them blinky lights, but when we get into mitigation, unlike California, when we have something that impacts a system, and it could be a feeder here that actually runs up a mountainside and a tree may take that out, it goes into what's called a no-shot. And what that is if you're sitting at home and a storm comes through, you may see your lights come on a couple times. That's the system resetting itself. That actually goes away when we're in certain levels. We stay pretty tight with the Forest Service at what that looks like. And when that takes place, we have to patrol that line out. It could be an 80-mile run. For the pure reason of if something's on the ground, it doesn't energize what vegetation's around it. And then you have a catastrophic failure. So these lights I mentioned, they're all through this area. I tell people it looks like Sky Harbor Landing if there's a fault because they just start blinking, they're red. And we encourage people, if you do see that, APS.com, make a call, let them know you see these here. What that does, it takes my responders to that area. That's where the fault is actually taking place. And we can do a repair much quicker than them trying to visually see something from the ground. It's unfortunately not 8 to 5 this happens. It's usually in the middle of the night, so there's a lot of challenges that come with that. So we definitely encourage people to utilize that tool. I know in this area right now, my counterpart Jonathan, he gets calls if something comes through, and they'll call, I've got blinky lights outside of my house. So definitely a positive thing. But fire mitigation, I know it's a challenge for our customers. It's a challenge for us as well when we have that loss of power. But our goal is to make sure people understand why that happens. And we spend a lot of time at all of the council meetings in the Northwest. The response, what we have there is in the event of a fire or something getting locked out, we actually, I'm in the Prescott side, Jonathan does the same here. We stage teams around the clock so they can continue to go through the process of what needs to be re-energized safely, right? Because we still have to be aware of what fire resources are out there, what law enforcement resources are out there. I know Darla and Darla is your community affairs manager for this area, and she's probably your biggest cheerleader. But she did hand out to some that were here earlier. This is on the back counter here, and this actually talks about wildfire safety and fire mitigation. I do know areas that I've been into with while the fire is going in impact, just like my house, I keep everything as clear as I can around that. And we had a fire come through Viewpoint, and all the homes in there literally were spared because they had about a half an inch worth of growth in that whole little area. So that fire ripped through everything but did not touch a single home. So just as our vegetation cleanup, we just definitely make the communities aware of a fire-wise status, and that definitely eliminates a lot of issues. But again, I thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, I'll definitely answer them.
Great. Any questions?
No, I'm good.
No? How are we looking this year as far as fire risk? I've heard mostly, the grasses are mostly the biggest issue.
So fire risk, we had our big mitigation meeting last week. The Northwest is the #1 target.
Okay.
So just like you're mentioning the vegetation, everything has grown rapidly, and it's with this wind, it'll take about 2 weeks to die it down. Yeah. And already having 13 fires year to date, it's going to be a long year. Okay. So we want to get where we need to be as safe as possible, as minimal impact to our customers, and as minimal impact to our environment. Sure. All right. Well, thanks for coming in this evening. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time. Thank you. Okay, next we have two new employees introduced to the council and public. We have Kevin Rose. I think you're up first. You're going to introduce your new employee, right? Much needed new employee, I think.
Yes. Very happy to postpone. Thank you, Mayor and Vice Mayor, City Council. Kevin Rose, I'm the network administrator in the IT department. We just recently hired Lance Alley, imported him all the way from Maine. He's bringing in some good experience in the GIS world. It's one of those areas I think that a lot of people really, it's kind of mysterious in IT, but his main function is going to be working with public safety so that when they are dispatched to an incident that their maps and addresses are as accurate as possible. That's kind of the main function, but he also works a lot with the county and with cell providers and other employees in the city that also work with GIS mapping to ensure that all of our data is accurate and up to date, and that we're coordinating with everybody so everybody has the same data. So that's why he's the GIS coordinator. So he kind of helps to tie all of that together for the city. So I'll give him a moment to talk about himself as well.
Yeah, as Kevin said, my name is Lance Alley. I've worked with GIS, specifically in natural resources, for the past 9 years. This is kind of my first foray into public safety, but I'm very excited to be on board. I've been visiting Cottonwood for the past 5 years, so finally able to be here. I'm excited to be part of the team and part of the community. I appreciate the opportunity.
Great. Welcome to Cottonwood. I'm glad to have you. Thank you. So if we could ask our new employees to stick around just for a minute, we'll get a photo with council. All right, Commander Braxton, you're up next. Go ahead. You have a new communications specialist.
Yes.
Great.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council, Garth Braxton, the Cottonwood Police Department, and I'm beyond thrilled to introduce one of our newest communications specialists to the team, RAYNA MIRALDI-SILVAS, has joined us for about 2 months now, and she comes from Peoria, Arizona. She's a proud mother of 3 daughters, of which she loves braiding hair and doing crafts with them. Takes up a lot of time, I'm sure. And she also has 2 brothers and a sister. Some of the things she likes about Cottonwood are, no surprise, the abundance of great places to eat, and just being away from the city, I think, gives a different perspective and integrated into the hometown feel that we have in the city. So we're grateful to have her, and hopefully she'll be one of many that we'll see coming throughout the coming months and years to come. So if you want to say a few words.
Hello everyone, good to see you all. I'm really excited for this opportunity. I've never had anything like this, and I'm super excited to learn and keep progressing. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for joining us. All right. Let's go ahead, council, then, and come up front. We'll get a photo with the new employees.
There's only a few of us.
Yeah, really.
What am I gonna hide?
You gave the new employees fingerprints.
Just the girl.
Oh, thank you.
Do you know if anyone else is coming?
Anyone else? No, this is it. This is it. Yeah. So this concludes our pre-meeting. We're going to just take a quick break. We'll be back at 6.